I did not do well-o.
You just did.
I did. Dang it. Okay. Well, hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I am fine. How are you?
I'm good. It's a good day. Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
It's a allergy-filled day.
Oh my gosh. It's been the absolute worst today.
You missed Tayden sneezing like crazy
Really?
early. It was like he was sneezing to the point it was really annoying. Like, stop already.
Yeah, I had a couple of those attacks today.
Oh my
Gosh. You got to love North Texas during the springtime.
Yeah.
You can start seeing the yellow film on the cars, which is not good at all.
No, the spring's supposed to be beautiful. It's not very beautiful to me.
I mean, it's not very beautiful when you got snot running down your nose and your
I don't have snot running
eyes
down my
crying.
nose.
And okay, well, that makes one of us, I suppose.
Yep.
But anyway,
Yep.
let's get into it today.
Okay.
We had actually quite a few responses from the show last week. We might have to touch that subject again. A lot of people had different comments on the whole interracial, biracial thing.
Yeah.
With couples and kids and all that kind of stuff.
Can't make it up, man.
Yeah, man.
You can't make that stuff up.
Yeah.
You know, I had one of my sisters was when we posted, one of our friends that had wrote, you know, when he saw us at the gym, whatever. Somebody said, Claire was like, "Is this for real?" Like, WTF? Are you serious? I'm like,
real talk.
Can't make that up.
Yeah, real talk.
Can't make it up. In your face, behind your back.
It happens.
It happens.
Definitely.
And it's not unheard of, sadly. Sadly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yep. But before we get too far into it, I will ask that you click out of the video if you're watching on your phone and go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe, and also turn on the bell notifications so you know when we post a new video, because we have been a bit oddball here and there just because life, right?
Yeah.
So make sure you turn those bell notifications on so you know when we post. And I think there's a few different things to do on the podcast side, but because everybody's on different platforms, it's hard to explain. So
It's true.
yes. But today we're going to talk about being a blended family and kind of what it looks like for us, how we got to this point.
Yeah.
Because we did mention in the show last week that I am not Jalen's biological father.
You're not. Oh my gosh.
Somebody forgot to tell everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I guess I'm not sure where.
How did we get here? Because, you know, a girl and a boy liked each other. They had some babies. Bam, they became blended.
There you go. Yeah. So we have a pretty good relationship. I'd like to say we have a really good relationship.
We have an awesome relationship.
With your ex-husband, with Jalen's dad.
Yeah.
And incredibly blessed to be at the point that we're at now.
It took work, though.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not get it twisted. Like, we are not like some, you know, unicorn family.
Yeah, no, it
just happened.
It wasn't always this way.
Yeah.
It definitely was not always this way. But, well, I mean, I guess kind of go how things started off, because, you know, when we first got together, things were cordial.
Yeah.
But then there were a few threats of custody and stuff like that, and that set you off
That set
quite
me
a bit.
off tremendously. I mean, you know, any relationship, right? Like, when you split up and there are kids involved, there's not this, I don't know, not like you're trying to have some power over the other person, but you feel kind of, you're trying to figure life out separately. You're not together. You know, Deshawn and I, we were high school sweethearts. We got married very young. We tried really hard to make our marriage work, but we were young. We were 19, 20, having a baby.
Yep.
You know, and we split and we just started doing life. Like, you know, he went his way, I went my way. There were fights in between. We, you know, drop-offs. Are you taking him? No, you're taking him.
Yeah.
And then it's well, you don't want me to see him. Well, I don't want you, you know, and it was never that was never the intention.
Right.
My mom was still alive at the time. And so, you know, our parents were in the middle of it all too. And whether they were more involved or, you know, or not involved at all, it was very much a back and forth, and it's a lot being, so we got together, or we got married. We were together in high school, but we got married at 20. I was pregnant at 19. I got married at 19. 19, 20, you know, get split up by 21. I mean, you're figuring life out as a kid. I'm a kid. We're kids raising kids.
Yep.
I mean, that is, you know, it was what it was. And so trying to figure that out and trying to grow up all at the same time and, you know, still being the jealous partner or not being, or, you know, having people involved. How do you make that work? How do you, you're dating someone, they can't be around my child.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's so many factors that you think of. And then, you know, it took time. Even us at 20 something, it was work.
Yeah.
We didn't even get to that point until we moved here to Dallas.
Yep.
And we just moved here 10 years ago. Like, it's not unheard of. Like, there was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of yelling between Deshawn and I, and, you know, a lot of you trying not to get involved, but getting involved as, you know, as much as you could, trying not to step on people's toes.
Yeah.
It was a lot, but there was a lot of hard work. There was a lot of growing up.
Yeah.
There was a lot, you know, he's very even keel. He's very much a non-confrontational person. I am very much a non-confrontational, but then I want to confront you all at the same time. So, you know, there's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of somebody taking my place. And I don't think he ever felt like that either. I think it was just, it was me. It was who are you getting around Jalen? It was me being an overprotective mom because we were dealing with special needs issues and trying to figure him out. And so then you're introducing, you know, over time we got married. And so for me, it was like, you're dating, but how many people are you dating? And who are you bringing around Jalen? And, you know, so there's a lot of that, but then me also not considering how did he feel, because he's such an even keel person.
Yep.
You know, he never came to me if he was upset at me or if he had any feelings about us getting married.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I never heard of that side.
Yeah, we never really asked his thought or opinion. We just kind of told him.
Yeah.
And I guess thinking back, that wasn't the right way to approach it. That's just what we
just
did.
did.
Right.
You know, it wasn't like, because I mean, you think about it, taking parent roles aside, because you didn't have any kids, you know what I mean? It was just, we were dating, we loved each other, we got married.
Yep.
That was the end. There's no reason for you to have any, you know.
Yeah.
You have no input in my relationship, right? That's normally how people think of it. But then there's also a kid involved. And so they're, you know, having a son together, it wasn't like, how do you feel about Mark? Like, I don't even think you guys even really spoke.
Not
really.
Not
until like a few years. Like, like I said, it was cordial.
Yeah.
Not
when
the way we
drop
were
Jalen off and pick him up, it'd be like, hey, what's up? And that was kind of the extent of it.
Mm-hmm. And for a while, it was us dropping him off. It was never you guys one-on-one or, you know, whatever like that. So, I mean, there's a lot of things. Gosh, I wish I could have changed. Maybe it would have made the situation easier. Maybe not. Yep. Maybe the situation was what it was. But man, am I so thankful for where we are now.
Yeah. So one thing as a rule of thumb, what I tried to do as the step parent, I never wanted to step in between conversations with you and his dad when those conversations were about Jalen.
Right.
I always tried to like, hey, that's his dad, you're his mom. You know, I'm not going to sit here and be like, I have more say so than his father. Right.
Of course.
So I always tried to stay out of those until or if it began to get disrespectful toward you. Yeah. That's when I would step in, because then I feel like at that point it kind of switches. Okay, no, you're no longer talking to your child's other parent, right? Right. But now you're talking to my spouse, like you're talking to my wife. Yeah. Like that's kind of how that switch flipped for me. Right. And I really only can remember one time.
I was gonna say, it's not like it happened. Yeah. Multiple. I mean, we also never really had very heated conversations.
Yep. Nope.
It was very, very far, few and in between. Yeah. Right. Where him and I would get into it, and it would be an all out scream. Yeah. You know, and mainly on my part, because I am a product of my mother. And so
if you did not realize, sometimes super rare, never ever happens, like super rare. Abby can go 0 to 100. I hate you.
I do not go 0 to 100. I speak passionately. No. It's because I'm very passionate about
Your
subjects.
love is a 1 in a million. It goes on and on and on. Yeah, you can go 0 to 100.
Sometimes.
Shout out to Aaliyah.
Okay.
Rest in peace.
Wow.
That was yeah, that just happened.
That happened.
Yeah, so
either way,
yeah.
It was give me some credit. I've calmed down quite a bit.
Yes, you have. You have.
I don't believe you the way you say that. I need you to make the listeners
Real talk, no cap.
Whatever. Can you say that at 38 years old?
I can say whatever I want to. I'm Mark Duncan.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I don't even know where I was. Yeah, I would sometimes get overheated and mad, and
Yeah, so
I'd
raise
this
my
one voice just a little bit.
this one time where things got out of control. I remember D had come up to drop Jalen off.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what happened, but something set you off. And then I think he raised the bar by saying, well, I'm going to call my lawyer and I'm going to take custody of Jalen.
Yeah.
And that just sent you over the top. And y'all were like, you're inside the house, but y'all were yelling at the top of your lungs. And I see Jalen and Tayden, because Tayden was born at this point in time, come around the corner and just looking. And that's when I got even more mad at both of y'all. And I raised my voice at both of y'all. And
I wonder if he remembers that.
I don't know. But I was like, y'all two need to get a hold of yourselves. I was like, these two kids are watching. Like, they're watching exactly what's going on. So I kind of like sent y'all to your separate corners. I was like, Deshawn, get out. I mean, and I sent you away so you could cool off. Yeah. And then I went outside and talked to him. I was like, bruh, for real? Like, you even saying that sentence, you knew that was going to set her off. Like, why would you go there? Because, like,
listen, don't threaten a mama.
Yeah.
About her cubs. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, talk about me all you want to. Yeah. Talk about how is an awful parent or awful person to you, whatever. But talk about taking my babies from me. Yeah. Oh, we're done.
Yeah, and
we're done. We're done. I felt the heat. I felt the rage in my throat. I felt the red in my eyes. Like you know how in cartoons you see the fire in their eyes. Okay. Oh, take him. You bet. I'm finna go to jail tonight. I'm finna go to jail, and I don't care. I don't care. You bet. And we're broke. I have no money. I'm about to stay in here for a long time.
Yeah, that was
yeah.
That you.
But that was the last time we did that. That was the last time that ever happened because it took I don't even think. We didn't speak much either after that, unless it was about Jalen.
For a little bit.
And so it was like a here and there conversation, very short text message, whatever it was, drop off, how did that look? Yeah. And really the only time it ever really happened was when we talked about who's going to have him full time or whatever, But we decided a long time ago, and I think I decided in my head a long time ago that it had to stop being about, even though I said, well, it's not about, it's not about Deshawn, it's not about us, it's about Jay. It never really was about Jay. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it was, and I had came back to him years ago and apologized, like, man, I don't think I ever really ever thought about how you felt about any of it. Yeah. I made decisions to make decisions. Yeah. Like I made decisions for me and for Jalen. I never made decisions barring how you felt. Yeah. And even when he would come to me and tell me like, oh, he's about to get married or he's about this. Like, I don't believe that I ever gave him that same respect of, hey, I just want to let you know, like, this is what's happening. Yeah. No, I think I did. I did tell him what was happening. I didn't extend it any further because it wasn't a conversation that I thought it was a conversation to be had, right? Like, if it didn't deal with Jalen, didn't matter.
So would you say you talked more at him versus to him because you just kind of informed him of what you were doing? It was
more informational. Yeah. It was never a, hey, I just like, how do you feel about that? Like, are you okay? And even then when we did talk, he was always like, yeah, I'm cool. No, that's cool. It's all good because he's an even keel person.
Yeah.
Nothing really sets Deshawn off unless it takes a lot.
So you say that
it takes a lot.
And the funny thing is when y'all had that real like knockdown, drag out argument.
Yeah.
And when I went outside with him and I asked him, I was like, why'd you even say that? He was like, cause she just made me so mad. And like, it was like he never, it's like he hadn't even argued. It's like he didn't even argue. He was just like, she just made me so mad. And I was like, bro, I get that. But like you can't say stuff like that. And literally, I think it was like 5-10 minutes later, like we came back in the house and like everything had calmed down and we were like talking like normal people
like
again.
We were fine. You know, and so there's a lot of immaturity that came along with that too, though.
That's a big one right there.
It's a lot of immaturity of how you made me feel, vice versa. That marriage too. It's a lot of how you made me feel versus how I made you feel, and not really considering the other person.
Right.
There is very much, another level of love and respect.
Yeah.
There is it has to be a very selfless situation where it stopped being about me and it started being about you.
Yeah.
Regardless of the relationship. It stopped being about me and Deshawn. It started being more about Jalen. It had to. But even when it stopped being about me and Deshawn, or I thought it was, and it was more about Jalen, my emotions for my child overtook whatever was going to play out, right? So it was more of how did I feel about Jalen feeling about? Not how Jalen felt about feeling about this situation, about him getting married, about me getting, and it is, in our situation is very different because Jalen is special needs. So hell, I don't know half time, whatever he's thinking. A lot of times I think Jalen's cussing me out. That's just real. And a lot of times he's just happy. He doesn't care. A lot of times I'm more worried about his environmental like situation and how his environment's changing than Jalen probably is.
Yeah.
And that's for any child. But I think it was more about how did I feel about it, how I felt about it affecting Jalen. But this is really the fact about how is it really affecting Jalen, or letting it play out to see how it affects Jalen, because we had to handle it very differently because Jalen doesn't talk. So there's a lot of that, right? So a lot more emotion came to protecting him into what was happening. But there was a lot that happened for Jalen. Like we moved all the way to Fort Worth. We left San Antonio. We uprooted his life. He had to change, and a lot of good came out of it. But then there was a lot of change for our relationship, where Deshawn had to start driving, or we had to start meeting, and then there was the switch off, or he didn't see his dad every Thursday and weekends and stuff like that. And so I had to make a very conscious effort and decision, one, to apologize, and two, take myself out of it. Yeah. And yes, take myself out, but yes, for sure put Jalen first. And I think the biggest thing for me was, at the end of the day, Jalen, Tayden at the time, because we didn't have Evelyn yet, but they would always know that it didn't matter who Jalen was with, or Jalen didn't care who he was with. Across the board, the adults that were in his life loved him. Right. Across the board, the relationship was the same. Across the board, he was loved just as hard from you. That Tayden was loved the same way. That we were at the end of the day family, because we are, no matter how you look at it, we are very blended. The situation is very different, and it isn't a normal situation where you have parents split and your child is able to now talk for themselves, right? Like the parent can now text that kid. The parent can now call that kid. The parent can now make decisions, and, the other parent, whatever, the non-custodial parent or whatever you want to call it, they can talk now through that child, and that child can talk to that parent, right? And so and then at 18, you do what you do. That is not our situation. Yeah. That is not our situation at all. Jalen will be with us for the rest of our lives. Jalen will be with, D for the rest of his life. And at some point it has to work. Yeah. At some point we have to start arguing. Yeah. At some point we have to start getting along. At some point Tayden and an Evelyn and his kids are going to grow, and they're going to see the relationship. And I don't ever want, and maybe that is selfish, but I don't ever want to ever look back or ever hear from any of the kids' mouth that we had a bad relationship. That's what they saw, that's what blended families had to be, right? Like they had to be fighting all the time. We had to be in court all the time. There were visitation rights. There were all these things that separated us when at the end of the day, it didn't have to.
Right.
We could be one.
Yep.
We could be family.
Yep.
We didn't have to be, super lovey-dovey and see each other all the time. But whenever we did see each other, there was no weirdness. There was no us versus them.
Mm-hmm.
There was no, we never spoke bad. Still continue not to speak bad about each other. Because for what?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I had to come to a point. I had to make a decision. I had to apologize. I came, to his wife and apologized because there was a lot of hurt that I didn't consider. Man, did you go through? And maybe he didn't. But at the time when I started to go through it, it was like, and we were married, and it wasn't like I cared for him in that way, but it was like, wow, is this what you went through too? Like the transition of, just not being together, one, and the transition of, okay, here's this couple, here's us. Now he's dating someone else. Here he's getting married. He's having all these transitions in his life, and not oh, you don't care about me anymore, but it's like, man, what's gonna happen to Jalen?
Yeah.
Do you still consider him your kid? Even though he did, there was never a question about that. But it was just, there was a lot of emotion that I never even considered. Man, did Deshawn have to walk through this too? Like, did he feel the way I was feeling? Like, there's a lot there, it wasn't like I cared for him like that. It wasn't like I wanted to be with him again, but it was wow, this is a lot of change because I've only known Deshawn to just be with Deshawn. Yeah, he dated, whatever, but then there's marriage is a big deal. Having more babies is a big deal. And so there's a lot of emotion that comes into that, especially when him and I were together for so long. Him and I were together since we were in high school, And so there's a lot of emotional change that happens. And I never thought and sat back like, whew, and men think differently than women. Men feel differently than women. So there's a lot of, man, did you go through this? Oh my gosh, it's just a lot. It's a lot. And I don't think we ever think about the other side. Most of us.
Yeah.
I know I didn't.
Yeah.
And I know I didn't try to have a relationship with his wife early on, even though we all knew each other. But it was like I never went deeper, right? Or I never said, hey, I'm sorry. I don't know if you ever thought this or blah, blah, blah. And we tried to make commonalities or talk and text here and there. And I try to make sure I text just to keep lines of communication open, just because it stopped being about me. It stopped being about us versus them, because it never was in my head. It was just we function as one, because this is a lot. And Jalen, for as long as I know right now, Jalen's situation is not going to change. Jalen is who he is until the end of time. And so there's a lot of us advocating for him. And I mean all of us, not just me and you versus him and his wife. It's just there's a lot of advocating. There's a lot of decisions. There's a lot of what happens at every season that Jalen comes to. Like, now he's going to be a senior. And what happens next? What does life look like? Making medical decisions. What does that look like? Having new kids around. Jalen's mood swings. Those are so many different things that we have to consider. How does that make you feel? How does that, how does that respond to the other kids? Because Jalen isn't full-time there. He's full-time with us. It's what we know, and so even our kids, talking very openly with them and talking to them about our situation, or, hey, who's Deshawn? And if you ask our kids, it's Uncle D. That's what they know him to be. That's who he is. Yep. Period.
Okay. So before we jump ahead, and I wanted to ask you a question, is and we'll say in 60 seconds or less, because there's another section of this that I definitely want to move on to. But what was it like for you to come to the realization that you needed to apologize to him? Because that's a big step that a lot of folks never come to.
Yeah.
And not saying that that's the case in every situation, because each situation is different, right? But for the way you saw things and the way how things played out, and you got to a point where you were like, man, I owe him an apology. Like, what was that like?
I guess for me, it wasn't like I was like swallowing my words. Like, I had to come to him, but it was put myself in his shoes and getting down to the root of my emotions, right? Like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I getting so angry? Why am I mad that he brought somebody to the drop off? Right. Like, and a friend or what, is like, why didn't he inform me? But it was like, why am I asking all these? Why does that matter? Right. He's here to pick up Jay. He's here because he loves him. He's here because he cares about him. He's never going to hurt him. That was never a question. Right. I know that he would never put him in any position that he didn't care, Yep. And so, it was humbling. I don't know if there was any like I don't know how else to describe it or what I think more so it was humbling and it was freeing to say, you know what? And it a lot of times, we talked about this, a lot of times the sorry isn't for them, it's for you. Right. And so it was was I not considerate enough?
Yeah. Yep.
Did I have a lot more expectations for him than I had for myself?
Yep.
Right. And thinking more about my feelings about it versus, like I said, versus Jalen's, and then making it in my head seem that it was more about Jay, right? So I had to clear the slate. I had to clear everything. I had to confronting is very new to me, right? And it takes a lot for me to confront somebody. So for me to apologize was very much not eat my words, but it was there's a fear in apologizing because you don't know what's going to come out of it. I don't know if it's, I don't know how you're going to take it. I don't know what it's going to do for me. I don't know if I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know, but I know that in order to get to where I need to be, in order to walk out what I said I want to do, which was be more a family, somebody had to apologize.
Right.
So.
Okay. So one of the things that you started to talk about that I want to get into, kind of move to the next spot, is what things are like with us now, right? We talked about how the relationship is good with us, and you were just talking about how our kids know him as Uncle D. Like that's just, it is what it is. Like when he comes into town, we go out as a family, we hang out. It's not like, oh, Jalen, you just go with your dad. I mean, he does go with him. Like
some time with him.
spends the night, whatever, whatnot. But we do hang out as a unit. And what good effect do you think that's had not only on Jalen, but also like on our kids on this side?
I think it came down to, like we talked about, we wanted to be a family, and that meant everybody.
Right.
We hold ourselves in our home. We hold ourselves to a standard, right? Like if you come in our doors, if we have a relationship with you, we're going to cultivate that relationship because it's a relationship we've prayed for, right? That doesn't just stop because him and I aren't together and we're, whatever it is, right? I still have to love on him as a human being and love on him as Jalen's dad. So, I didn't put standards on it just cause, right? And so I think being very open-handed in this relationship and especially very giving ourselves grace to figure some things out because it's not easy.
Oh, not at all.
It's not easy.
It's definitely a challenge.
Especially when you still have to have hard conversations, right? Like, we have very different hard conversations. And like we've talked about, like essentially Tayden is our first in everything because he's walking through things that we've never had to walk through with Jalen. And so, we have our conversations are different, but they're still hard in its own way. And so, I never want there to be some type of barrier in between us. I never wanted my kids to ever look at, which I've touched on. I don't ever want them to look at that's what life has to look like.
Right.
That's what relationships should look like. If you divorce, if things don't work out, or, you don't have, you come out of a situation, even with a friendship, that you're not okay. Right. I don't have to be for everybody. Me as Abby Duncan, my personality, who I am, which took me a long time to get to and still working through that, is my personality is not for everyone. And you might not be for me, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to respect you. That doesn't mean I'm not going to love you, you know, but I also don't have to be your friend, right? And so he ain't going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. Jalen's definitely not going anywhere. And so I want my kids to have that same standard, that it's not what we know as modern culture today of that has to be your baby daddy. That has to, you know, relationships have to be sour. It doesn't have to be. You can only control what you can control. I can only control my attitude. I can only control what my kids see. But I want to be very transparent and very genuine in what they see. But with that, even if, which hasn't happened in years since we had the blow up, but I never want them to ever see me bad mouthing anybody. But definitely not Jalen's dad. Definitely not feeling, because then I don't want them to feel uncomfortable being around that. And so I think for our kids, again, they don't know any different. They don't know anything, but my parents loved each other. And they loved the people that they were around. They loved Jalen's dad, you know, and Jalen doesn't know any different because Jalen's not dumb. So what I don't want Jalen to think is that there's a side to be picked. There's not a side to be picked.
Right.
We are for you. We are for all of you. And he's, you know, D makes that very apparent. You know, the kids love him. Avi doesn't know any different. Tayden definitely doesn't know. Tayden's been around forever. I mean, you know, and so we've walked through a lot of seasons with that where, you know, and all of that. We walked through all those seasons. So
I think it's been really I mean, it's definitely been really good. I mean, Deshawn and I text back and forth from time to time, you know, when we need to, stuff like that. You know, birthdays, Father's Day, different stuff like that, whatever. And he's told me, like, you know, thank you for being in Jalen's life, for everything that you do, whatever. And that's super humbling on my part, coming from his father, you know, telling me that. So I'm extremely humbled when I get those text messages from him. And I'm thankful for the relationship that we do have and that we do co-parent well together. You know, when there's stuff going on with Jalen, it's definitely like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what we think. What do you think? You know, it's not just hey, this is what's going on. This is what we're doing. You know, take it or leave it, get on board, because, you know, you're not physically here. And I'm glad it's not like that. I'm glad that we have open communication. And more often than not, like, I really can't even think of a time where Deshawn just been like, no, don't do that. It's like,
oh my gosh, no.
You know, he understands.
There's been very much support on both ends. You know what I mean? And anything that Jalen ever needed, anything that, you know, Jalen's ever gone through, he was there. You know, and, you know, I have to look at it as, you know, I can't look at it as, well, he's not here, we are. Right? I have to look at it as, man, it must suck to not be able to be around your other kids. Right? It's hard. It's hard too as a parent to be like, man, Jalen's not integrated there either. He only has so much time. But even then, it's not like it's some weirdness whenever he does come around.
No, it's definitely not.
Never like that. Definitely not what I'm saying at all. But
I mean, when we say he's integrated, like, he's met my side of the family. Like my mom knows who he is. You know, my sisters and stuff like that. That was funny. Like, that caught some people off guard when he came to church. They were like, wait. Because first of all, a lot of people didn't even know that I wasn't Jalen's dad, because it's not something that we advertise. No. But then they were like, Jalen's dad? And like, wait, he's here? Like, it's okay? Like, y'all are cool? Like,
and that's the thing, right? It's like, oh, I didn't know you could be like that. Like, where is there a rule book to say that we have to have an awful relationship? Is it because my relationship didn't work out with him? That we have to be awful to one another? Like, at some point, you got to grow up. At some point, it has to stop being about you guys, because you're going to move on. I'm going to move on. So why are we still so angry? Right? Like, I had to get to the heart of it. I had to really get to the root of, am I really angry because he brought somebody around? Or am I just really angry just for the sake of being angry? Because I've never felt all these emotions because I kept moving. Right? I don't think I gave myself time to grieve over, anything, right? Life just moved, whether it was grieving over not him and I just splitting and not having a marriage work, because that's hard, especially being so young. Like, we really did try.
Yep.
We really did try.
As best you could at what, 20 years old?
20 something years old.
There's so much you don't know, don't understand. And if you don't have the right people around you to help you out, then
it's hard. It's hard and it's lonely, and you're just trying to grow up.
Which I'm not trying to sabotage, but I'm glad you didn't have the right people around you, because then now you're
then
mine.
we wouldn't happen.
So just saying.
Sorry, Deshawn.
Not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. But and he wouldn't have.
But he's got a great family now.
He has a great family. He has beautiful boys.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so we would not be. I am so thankful we went through what we have gone through, because I wouldn't be the person. We've talked about that. Like, how do you feel about your past? Like, looking at your past. And da 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 da. But had it not been for my past, I wouldn't be the mom I am.
Right.
I wouldn't have grown in a lot of areas. I wouldn't have matured in a lot of areas. I wouldn't have known I needed maturing.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't have met the family that I have now, and the church family so there's so many reasons to be thankful, right? I can't dwell on, I can't believe he didn't.
Yeah.
I can't believe we didn't. I can't believe I didn't.
Yeah.
For what, right? At the end of the day, what's the point of holding on to all of that?
Yeah.
So, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for him. I'm grateful for, our relationship, because it's very different. We don't have, again, it came with a lot of work, and it was very awkward.
Yeah.
Because we did make the decision to say, hey, I want across the board all the kids to know, because I think at the time he didn't have any kids yet. But I wanted all the kids to know that this is what it looks like. Yeah. It doesn't have to look weird. It doesn't have to be, they just know that this is Uncle Deshawn, and Uncle Deshawn is Jalen's dad, but you are also Jalen's dad.
Yeah.
And, I'm thankful for that. So.
Yeah. Well, I think this is definitely a good one. Yeah. I hope a lot of people find some good nuggets in this. And, again, our situation is not everybody's situation.
It's not.
I've talked to a lot of people and friends and stuff like that are in our situation, but it's definitely, they haven't been able to have the relationship with, other parents or other side or whatever the way we have. I will
say it, when it comes down to, I think there's not a pride issue, but there's a level of control, because you have to make decisions on visitations and things like that, right? And I think that's what messes with us, because when you're talking about divvying time, and time is something you can't get back, and it's like you're taking it away from me, which is why we decided, you know what? Go when you want to go. It's not about, well, we had him this year and you need to have him next year, and it made it so difficult to scheduling. Scheduling made it difficult, but then it also made it about us.
Right.
It made it, so. Yeah.
Yep. So,
that helped.
Yes. Please subscribe, hit us up.
I feel like you just shut down my conversation.
We do have a time limit. So.
Are you putting a time limit on us?
Not exactly.
But I think you do. It's
deeper than that. But, yeah, it's not that simple.
Okay, whatever. I feel like you're like, yeah, Abby. All right, subscribe, hit the blah, blah, blah button. Don't forget to turn on your notifications. Hurry up. Bye. Bye, guys. Hurry.
All right.
Stop the timer.
We'll see you later. Thank you. Bye.